Welcome to today's KM World Web event, brought to you by Fluid Topics and Guru. I'm Mary D. Ojala, Editor-in-Chief at KM World Magazine, and I will be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled Agentic AI Meets KM, Revolutionizing Knowledge Discovery and Collaboration. Now, before we start, let me explain how you can be a part of this broadcast. There will be a question and answer session, and following that will be following the presentations and some discussion. So if you have a question during the presentation or during the discussion, just type it into that Ask a Question box and click on the Submit button. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been answered during the show, you will receive an email response to it within a few days. And now to introduce our speakers for today. Hillary Curran, Head of Customer Innovation and AI Enablement Guru. Fabrice Lacroix, CEO and Founder, Fluid Topics. So let's get started. Welcome to the broadcast, Hillary.
Hi, so excited to be here. My name is Erin. I'm head of customer innovation and AI enablement at Guru. And if you're in this webinar, you already know that knowledge management matters. So exciting right now is that for everyone who's cared about management for so many years, myself included, really like your time is now. Really great knowledge and great context is what is going to be feeding into every one of the AI systems and tools that your teams or companies are leveraging. And so today I want to talk about why your role is so important and why there's a lot of opportunity within knowledge management as AI has started. So every company that we work with at Guru, is racing to deploy AI right now. There's pressure from leadership, right? I'm sure you're hearing that folks that are on your team test these things out, find efficiencies, use AI anywhere you can. And what we're seeing across all the industries that we work with is that that's tripping people up isn't necessarily the model that they're choosing or the solution that they're choosing. It's actually the content, right? So if the context going into these systems is bad or inaccurate, what you're going to get on the other side is bad and inaccurate, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And that's really the whole story. And you guys know this, but I think it's really, really important to remember that now with AI. So what happens with AI is you get three things. One, you get hallucinations. And so this is the first thing that kind of came out when AI started to take over was that everyone was saying it was hallucinating. And so without that verified context or that accurate information, AI is going to make up, right? It's going to give an answer. It wants to be helpful and wants to answer your question. And so it's going to fill that gap and pull from something that may be stale or inaccurate because it wants to try to help you. The second thing that's going to happen, right, when you don't have great context is that you're going to have a lot of silos multiply. And so, if there's no single shared source of truth, every team ends up building their own. I've experienced this at multiple companies, right? You have one team leveraging one specific document or file of sources, group of sources in one source, and then you have another team using it. Can both be somewhat accurate, but when both of those teams are leveraging these totally different realms, you're going to get continued siloed, multiplied silos because of agentic systems. And then last but not least, you're going to get a lot of errors. So this is the one that most matters because if you think about, before AI, right, you had someone write into a customer support team or call in to a human question answer. It was just one person, one bad answer, right? One customer that's going to. Now with AI involved with like a customer facing, you get one bad source of information or one bad answer. It's going to cost thousands, hundreds that it's having at the same time. So the impact of those errors is much higher. So AI isn't necessarily fixing the bad information right now, right? It's helping scale it. And that's what's really. So if that's the risk, right? The risk is very clearly understood. Where is AI actually working? And so I want to talk a little bit about the study that McKinsey just completed. It's really comprehensive around where AI agents are actually scaling in production across tons of industries, tons of companies. And in a great way, knowledge management is actually the second highest use case. really second only to IT, which is, makes total sense. So it's not that knowledge management isn't where AI might go. It's here. It's working. People are leveraging it. Really a really great space to leverage AI. And so the other part of the study that I thought was really relevant is when you look at those high performers, right? So the roughly 6% of companies out there that are experimenting with AI and actually getting real value out of their work, the use case that's scaled the farthest is knowledge management, right? So those teams are over 4 times more likely to have scaled AI and knowledge management than anyone else, the teams that are high performing. So it shows you that the people that are thinking about this in the right way are already attacking the challenges and the scalability of the knowledge management, inefficiencies. And so then the same study asked, right, what's wrong? What's going wrong? And so knowledge management is working, right? It's a highly anticipated use case. People are finding value in it. But what also is happening is that about a third of the organizations running AI pilots or experiencing AI transformations at their company, they're running into inaccuracy, right? It's the most cited risk in production above security and compliance, right? People are putting information in and asking questions and getting wrong information out. And so the question isn't whether there's a risk in leveraging these tools. It's really like, what are we going to do to prevent this from happening? And that really is what we're going to talk about today, which is a governed knowledge layer. And so the foundation, right, the model, whether you're using OpenAI or Anthropic or Gemini or all these other tools, it doesn't really matter which model you're using. It's really what content is being leveraged. So if you have verified information going in, you're going to have accurate answers going out. But if you have stale, unowned, unverified content going in, right, you're going to have all of those negative things, content, hallucinations, confidently being shared out to your team. So again, the accuracy of your AI is the function of the quality of the knowledge, right? The only way to really improve the AI outputs is to improve that content underneath. And so quick context of where I'm coming from. I work at Guru. Guru is a governed knowledge layer. So we take scattered knowledge from all the different repositories of, tacit, unstructured, or structured content, and we bring those together into a verified source of truth. And this is going to feed into every person or every AI workflow in the company. So whether you're asking questions to Guru or asking questions in a different system, you want to be pulling from that same shared source of truth that's governed, that's accurate, and that that everyone on your team is pulling from that same source. So you're going to have similar and accurate information shared across all of your different workflows. And so the importance of a governed knowledge layer, I think that the really 3 things you need to know when you're thinking about building this or looking at solutions for this is that your content is something you. So a lot of content out there is really hard to parse through. There's companies we work with who have thousands and thousands of old, outdated SharePoint or Google Drive content files, like just a ton of content that's been buried for years and years. And now you can easily hook all of that into AI, but we want to make sure that we're pulling out the good stuff, right? So we're structuring it and strengthening it. Also, if you have sort of information that's more tacit, like chat threads from Microsoft Teams or Slack, or you have, call transcripts, all of that context is really rich and awesome, but it needs to be structured and organized for the AI to actually leverage it in a efficient way. So it's not wasting all this time trying to read every single conversation. So lots of things you can do to help kind of clean up that content. The second thing you want to do is have it governed and continuously improve. So something that's created today, right? We may have a meeting where we have a lot of great content and we save it into our knowledge base, but then tomorrow that information may change. And so if you don't have a system that's constantly improving and governing those updates, as soon as it gets put into the system, right, it's going to go stale and you're going to start to create a massive problem of maintenance that oftentimes is going to fall onto a human. And then last but not least, right, you need to make sure that whatever context layer that you create is actually going to be able to easily be accessible to both humans and to AI that's going to leverage it. So whether that's being pulled, that source is being leveraged via like an MCP or an API, you just want to make sure that whatever layer you're creating that's governed and accurate can be pulled into systems in an easy manner. And so again, you want to make sure that your governed knowledge layer can strengthen your content, can continuously improve it and govern it, and then that it's easily accessible, whether you're trying to push that information to a human or to an agentic workflow. Great. And so where we see this hit hardest, this is just a of a quick snapshot of a lot of the customers that we work with at Guru, they really span all companies now, right? Knowledge management is important for everyone, especially in the world of AI. And so the thing that's most relevant, I think, from this slide is that where we see the important accuracy really has specifically recently become much more of a demand is in really regulated industries. So healthcare, pharmaceutical companies, financial services, insurance, KM was always serious in these spaces, but now like one wrong answer can lead to a lot of bad information given out. And this isn't just embarrassing for the company; it's also a compliance issue. They can have fines related to it, right? A lot of things can create a lot of repercussions now when this information is given out at scale. So highly regulated industries is also an area where if you're looking for a job or if you're in knowledge management, they need you right now because they really care about the accuracy of their content. And so last but not least, to wrap up my little stuff before we dive into to hear more from Fabrice is, when McKinsey's high performance, right, high performers that I mentioned say that knowledge management is where these teams are pulling ahead. What those teams have found out is that AI without this verified knowledge layer is a real liability. And so when you have that verified context and you have the right information pushing into these systems, you're going to have a ton of leverage, right? You're going to be moving faster than your competitors. You're going to be able to be nimble and respond quickly to different changes in both the plays that you're leveraging and also the changes within your company. So the question for you to think about today isn't really like which AI tool or which system should we buy. I think which knowledge layer are we creating that's going to be feeding into all of these different AI tools so that we have one single source of truth. So now I'm going to hand it over to Fabrice to talk more about fluid topics.
Thank you, Hilary. Oh my God, what an introduction. I couldn't agree more with you that the technology is not the variable. I mean, the LLMs are the same for everyone. They are improving every day, and still we see lots of AI projects failing, and most of that is due to the content quality. And as well as probably the approach and the technology used to make that content fit the LLMs. And I'd like to bring to the conversation a different angle to what you describe, because we are as well in the same realm, but as a vendor, we are more specializing in product knowledge, which is a very, very different type of content that you find in companies. I mean, technical documentation, data sheets, learning material. And in this vertical, for the industries we work with, this content is already highly governed. I mean, it's like tech doc data sheets, they come from the PIM, from the PLMs. Tech doc is usually written with specialized tools. They are reviewed by professionals. So the governance is less an issue in our situation, but I think where people struggle is that there's a lot of redundancy in the information. I mean, it depends. There are a lot of variants on the product version. So it's like the same info, the same document. If you think document-based, the same user manual can exist in 5, 10, 20, in some companies, hundreds of variants for product in version A, version B, variant C, for Europe, for Japan, for the US, version 1, version 2, version 3. And you see the redundancy of information. That makes it very difficult because that information is there, it's governed, you can trust it, but the complexity is when to use what piece of information depending on the context. So that's something we see in our situation, which is that it's not the quality of the content, but more how you take the right piece of content and how you enable this AI system with the appropriate piece of content so that you get the right result that you need at the end. And that's a key thing. And the other thing that we see as well, when we discuss with our customers, is that until now, and probably talking about governance, lots of the AI system that have been designed with this idea that, like a chatbot, there will be a human behind the screen. There will be a human, someone asking for and reading that content. And what we see, it's like more and more, there's nobody behind the screen. There's no human. So the biggest consumer is becoming AI agents that are acting fully autonomously. They can be supervised. The actions can be reviewed at some point, but it's not like there's a human behind. They are just automating processes, supply chain management, problem solving, planning for maintenance. And that creates a new landscape, and that's a new challenge in how to make that content be efficient at powering those AI agents and making those agents make the right decision for the next steps. And the problem we see with when we see people developing those AI systems, just because now it's only machines consuming that content and not just no human behind. So it's like those AI systems, those AI agents working autonomously, they have to know where to go to ask for information. What is the right piece of information and where can I find that information? So we have this scattered knowledge issue. And even if you assume that the knowledge is truthful, it's there, everything has been written, nothing is deprecated, everything is accurate, still, you have an issue because those LLMs need to know where to go, and especially in the case of agentic system, because again, agentic works differently than RAG. With RAG system, you extract the content and you send the content to the LLM. But in the case of agentic system, that's the agent that goes to the sources and goes say, oh, I'm going to ask that knowledge base, that parts catalog, that CRM, that ERP, the info that I need. So it's the AI agent that proactively goes to the sources. So you don't pre-prepare the content necessarily, but the agents have to know where to go. And that's a huge step in terms of architecture and the way you design your AI systems, because you have to make clear to any agentic system, any LLM, where to ask for finding the information that this AI system needs for acting, reasoning, and making the right decision. And what we see is like typically some years ago, companies were trying to build data lakes to unify all the content, put everything in one place. But the moment you do that, you've lost, because the moment you start dumping content and pulling content from its source, the content is already out of sync. If you take an ERP with the product parts availability, a CRM that contains information about a customer, if you dump that content to reindex it somewhere, then you're already lost because you're out of sync. And any decision made by the AI agent is made based on an information that is outdated. So that's why we see a shift in the architecture of how to make those AI agents work, which is MCP based, meaning that instead of unifying content, we see more like it's a more federated approach. And typically, the information that is in the ERP or the CRM sits in the ERP or CRM. It's not dumped, it's not reindexed, it stays there. And those system of records have added MCP capabilities on the system so that AI agents can dynamically talk to them and ask for information. The problem starts when you have dump repositories, legacy systems that are not MCP enabled and that cannot talk with those AI agents. That's where you need to put an additional layer on top, but not on top of every system and unify any data in your company, but probably more like in a domain-based approach where you carve out only product information and unify that so that you make this content available to agentic AI systems without trying to merge everything in one place. So I think there's a shift in the approach today on how to make those systems work. And the third problem we see is the content quality, not in terms of truthfulness, but more like how the content is prepared and optimized for AI consumption. Because most of the content that we have today, and particularly when we're talking about product knowledge, technical documentation, parts catalog, knowledge bases, all of that has been written with this idea that it would be consumed by humans, searched and read by humans. So usually the format is PDFs, HTML files, HTML websites, wikis. The problem is that those formats are unfit for AI consumption. They are parts of the hallucination thing, and are still necessary because that knowledge still needs to be read and accessed by humans, but it has to be prepared as well and rendered in a more specific way for AI systems, meaning that the same content that you have in your company needs to be written, managed, governed, but as well prepared for different audiences that and optimize the rendering of that content for those different audiences, which are the human and the agentic system. And particularly when you start serving content to agentic system, you have to make sure that you have enough metadata on your content, enough description, so that you know what piece of content applies to what context, to what machine, to what problem, in what version, and all that. So this is essential for accuracy, because again, it's not just that the content is wrong, but it's the content that is not applicable in another context compared to the one you're in. So that's one of the key issues we have. And this is also part of the sort of a complexity here in knowledge management, is trying to understand how to organize knowledge by domain, like product knowledge, the legal knowledge, support knowledge, or whatever is specific, or financial, so that you don't mix everything in one place, but you can carve out those domain knowledge and build sets of knowledge that AI agents can tap into when they need. So that's what we see, and that's part of what we do. We are specializing in product knowledge because of the specificity of technical documentation, parts catalog, instructions, IFUs, and so forth. And we make that content, we unify that content, and just that sort of content, because there's, again, very specific problems in the architecture, the formats, the metadata, the redundancy of knowledge and the variance of content, and make that available to humans, to AI agents. So this is what we do as well. So I think we share the same view than Guru, but again, probably some subset of content in your company have specificities that you need to treat differently. And this is what we do for our customers. We help them transform the operations when it comes to customer support and field service operations by making this subset of content they have that is very specific, optimized for customer support agents and field technicians. And we do that for large and small companies across the world. So that's what we do. That's what I wanted to share with you. Probably the same idea that Hilary described, that, again, knowledge is the one thing that matters when it comes to AI, not the technology. But again, even the approach to content and the way you organize your knowledge may depend on the type of content you're talking about and the domains that exist inside your company and the type of company you're working with.
Well, thank you to both of you. Now let's move into some discussion. But let me remind the viewers that even though we'll be talking, there will be a chance for you as well. So if you have some questions, do remember to put those into the question box and click the submit button. So we've been talking today about Agentic AI, and honestly, it's hard to escape mentions of Agentic AI these days because everybody seems to be talking about it.
Yep.
So just looking at this from the knowledge management perspective, what do you see as the fundamental changes when AI moves from generating content to actually taking action autonomously? Who would like to start?
I can start with that one.
Okay.
And let Hilary then go on. I think first, and that was in the McKinsey slide as well, it's like they talk about AI for KM. I think it's a limited view. I think that's the opposite. It's KM for AI. It's like KM, knowledge management, remains something somewhere, and AI can help that. Yeah. I think no, KM is just what's needed to make AI work. I think you shouldn't make, it's not like KM is something separate that can leverage AI. I think like KM becomes the foundation of AI. It's the practice that will make AI successful in every company. So it's not like how AI can transform knowledge management. It's knowledge management is the foundation of successful AI. So it's KM is the one thing that makes your AI work in your company. We have to look at it that way. So if you ask for me now a new definition of what is knowledge management, I think you should redefine knowledge management as whatever it takes to make your AI work.
Whatever it takes. Okay.
Whatever it takes to make AI work, meaning content, governed content, organized content, tagged content, validated content, whatever it takes to make AI work, because AI works by content.
Hillary,
Yeah.
you talked a lot about governance. How does that tie into this idea of fundamental changes between generative AI and agentic AI?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Fabrice that knowledge management is definitely the foundation for a successful AI transformation, right? And it should be that the knowledge management has to come first before you can actually see successful AI. I think also saying at Guru is that you should be able to leverage AI to make knowledge management less management heavy, right? For the humans. And so like what are the parts of knowledge management that felt annoying, right? The things that could be automated. Now, the humans are definitely necessarily needed in that loop, right? You always need the human expert to review and maintain and ensure that things are being adapted and changed as the company's policies and everything's are changed. But there's a ton of stuff you can do now. Um, I've been at Guru almost over 9 years, and the number one thing every time we talk to customers is that like they never have enough people on their knowledge management team, right? No company like of this plethora of humans that can be help supporting this. There's always someone that's understaffed who has 4 or 5 other hats, and so like what parts of that person can you leverage AI to improve so that the things that they're working on are the things that are most strategic for the human, and then what parts of their workflows can AI be inserted in to like help improve their efficiency. So for instance, if you have sort of this wide spectrum of content that you review every month or every week, what parts of that can you notice that there are specific patterns where, okay, maybe if I just write a rule that says, if the date is outdated or if this word is used, which we've changed the word, our product name, right, changed from X to Z.
Right.
Can we create a trigger that like would notify me when these things fall through? Or what if I can have it compare all of our external facing content to internal facing content and find those parts of mismatch that are confusing our users, right? So there's a lot of places that AI is really good at taking a bunch of big giant amounts of information and pulling out those trends. And so that's what we're trying to do at Guru is help the knowledge managers like apply AI to parts of their roles that feel more heavy. And then also, to Fabrice's point, leverage that really great context that these teams are creating to then fuel the rest of their AI transformation at their company.
Yeah, but there's a point there too that relates to something that both of you said, which is about the actual quality of the information, which is also related to some standardization. You mentioned date. Date is the one that always confuses people because how is the date written? Is it written in European format?
Right.
Is it written in US format? Is it written just in numbers? Is it written with letters in there? And unless you have that standardized, your AI falls apart. Correct?
Right. Yeah,
I don't know if there are other
1,000%.
examples
No, and
besides
so
date.
like
Date is the one that always pops up to me. But
yes. Yeah, no, date's a really good one that we have had a lot of our knowledge managers leverage as far as how to like parse out the old information. I think phrasing is a good one, right? Understanding oftentimes how our and our consumers talk about our product is very different than how it's actually written in our documentation. And so there's an opportunity to take kind of like that pedestrian language and apply it into your your AI prompts to say like if someone says this they actually mean this, or maybe
right.
we add those that type of phrases and keywords into our automatically added into our help center articles, for instance, so that they're going to be surfaced more frequently. So there's a lot of opportunity with like how people talk about things and how that's evolving to continue to up and maintain your content so that you're speaking the same language as your end users. But I think, part of the challenge with any AI prompt or any AI system is really perfecting kind of like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And how can I, over time continue to tweak and improve the prompt and the questions that I'm giving this agentic tool to actually give me the right output. And so, oftentimes when teams come to us with a question, it's like, have you tested it? Have you tried it? And oftentimes like, the answer is no. So you should always test, right? Like the limitations for a lot of this tooling is really like being discovered now, right? And it's continuously evolving. So I always tell people, like, start with the easy stuff like dates, and then start to continue to experiment with like more and more complex information, and you'll start to understand where it's really working and where it's falling down.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question fully, Mary D.
Yeah, actually, it kind of leads me into another question. I'm going to direct this one to Fabrice. So, what happens to knowledge discovery when documents may look the same to an AI agent, but to the human eye, they're actually different? And when you have proliferation of AI tools within organizations, that probably just compounds the problem.
Yep.
Comments, Fabrice?
This is typically where you need to add a little bit of business knowledge around your contents, like metadata and tagging, to know in what context one piece of content apply compared to another piece of content that looks the same, but that may be valid in another context only. And typically, if you take, again, I was mentioning product documentation, like a user manual, you can have twice the same document, like 99% is the same. The 1% different is one was for version A, the other version is for version B of the product. None of them is wrong. But you have to make clear, you have to know that one document is for product A, the other is for product in version B. And that cannot be, and that can only be probably in a metadata. Sometimes the text itself looks the same because nothing in the text says that this is for product A and product B, because it's only in the title of a 100 pages document. And if you extract a chapter or a section and you give it to the LLM for doing whatever, and nothing reminds the LLM that this is for product A, for product B, then the LLM can't know. And that's something that you wouldn't as a human, because when you take the PDF, it's written on the cover page. The problem is that
the cover page, right?
The title on the cover page of your PDF, that's an implicit metadata. But that may be something that is not fed into the LLM at query time dynamically, and then the LLM may use the wrong information. Not that the information is wrong, but it's not the one it should be used. So that's where, in some cases, some types of documents, and you can take legal content as well, but probably your whatever service level agreements or whatever that you've signed with your customers, they have been negotiated by your last customer. Customer A negotiated some provision, and then you change 3 words into it. And then you have 20 times or 2,000 times almost the same document in your legal repository, but only 2 words are changing sometimes. It looks like being the same. So you need to know to what customers that apply compared to another one, and you cannot just put any of these legal terms to fit that into the LLM. And then we're back to the context. So the context is usually described by the metadata and the way you classify, you organize your content. And that's part of the complexity. Is like, and most of the time, and I've seen that, and probably that will ring a bell to almost most of you, I guess, that 2 years ago when IT departments wanted to build their own chatbot, it's like, we can do without the vendors. Okay, so that was the thing to do. IT departments wanted to build it because that was fun, that was new. So they came to all the departments of the company, say, we need content. We need the content. And we've seen in product documentation, typically you've got XML-based formats like DITA, or in aeronautics, S1000D. So highly structured, lots of metadata, everything you needed. So the guy said, okay, we can give you the data files. And the IT said, no, we don't know data. We need PDFs. So they were asking for the PDFs, not the structured content, the rich content. They were only able to take and put into the internally developed system only PDFs and HTML, losing all the semantics, everything. And then they were complaining that the systems were not working. For sure they were not working. They had super rich data, highly tagged, well organized, and they said, no, give us PDFs. That's the only thing we can put in our Copilot thing that we've bought or that we've built.
No, well, it is astonishing from a KM perspective. Yeah, no, but from a KM perspective, it's really extraordinary how many different formats and types of information that we now call documents that aren't exactly really documents.
No, they're not.
We've
Not everything
redefined
is a
that
Word
whole
file.
word.
Not everything is a Word file, nor a PDF.
Fabrice, let me go to something else. When we talk about AI agents, a lot of people are wondering how do you if you're adding AI agents to your staff, how are we supposed to think about them? Are they interns?
Oh,
Are they assistants? Are they something else? Are there any sort of best practices that knowledge managers should keep in mind when they're interacting
uh,
with AI agents?
that's a good question. And I think it's evolving the definition of how you could describe an AI system as evolved. Typically, I was talking about a RAG-based chatbot. Those AI
Hmm.
systems, the first LLMs to ChatGPT 4, basically were the LLMs, language models, were more like interns. Good to read, good to write. Okay, you had to feed them dynamically with the extracted content that they needed, and then they could reply to any question. They could rephrase, they could summarize. So it's an intern job. Not very smart, except putting something, lots of pages of text, and do something for you. Uh, but they've changed to being assistant, if not experts, with the latest models that are started with ChatGPT 5, becoming a
Hmm.
reasoning models. And there's a huge difference between GPT-4 and GPT-5. One is a language model, a generative model. The latest model from OpenAI, so ChatGPT 5, are the latest Anthropic model are reasoning models. And those
Hmm.
reasoning models now behave more like experts, assistants, because you can give them nothing and then you just ask a question and they start reasoning, say, okay, to reply to that problem, I will need this, that, and that. See what I mean? They start telling you what they need to become efficient at working for you, as opposed to an intern that is said, you put something on the desk and you say, do this, they will do. That's the intern job. And now agentic system with reasoning models, GPT-5 and latest model, that works differently. You just ask the question, you give nothing, and the model tells you what it needs for the next steps. And they start chunking, organizing the problem, structuring the question, and say, okay, to reply to that, I'm going to need information on that. I'm going to need information on that. Give me this, give me that. And they start iterating like that as long as they don't have enough information that you can provide so that they can achieve their goal and their task. So to your point, past models until last year were more interns. New models are more experts and real assistants.
So, Hillary, we're talking about how should we regard AI agents? Should they be regarded as interns, as assistants? Will they ever become
Yes.
actual experts? What's your view?
Yes, sorry for getting kicked out. I'm back, so I appreciate it. No, I completely. This is something that we talk a lot about at Guru is around how to manage AI. So I think one of the
Mm,
things that we usually also as a really great way to explain kind of how you should be treating these agentic workflows that you're building is that they
mm,
are somewhat of like almost like an intern, right? Someone that you're having to train, you're having to coach, you're having to give it the right context. And so, if you are used to being a manager of people, you understand all the things that go into managing people, right? You have to make sure that they're just staying on task, that they're not straying from the actual
yeah.
goal of the problem, right? All those things apply now, but you're instead of managing humans, you're managing agents. I think the thing that is a little different though is that these agents oftentimes aren't just necessarily working for one person, and specifically with the world
Mm,
of knowledge management, they're working for a lot of different teams depending on the scope of their use case. And so
mm,
whereas if I had an intern, I would tell it to do something, it would go do it for me, and it's more of like a single player mode, right? Like I give it a prompt, it would go fix it. In the agentic world, the training that I give to this agent is going to affect anyone else who's leveraging that as well. So it's a multiplayer tool. So think about it more almost like a chief of staff or a person on the team
mm,
that's working with a bunch of different users. And so the benefit of having that agent get all of this different context from all these different teams is that it's becoming much more learned in the company and in all of the different things that happen. but also like if I give it a bad piece of information, right, it's not just going to affect my outputs, it's going to affect other people's outputs. And so even more of a reason that you need to have really a really clear owner or sort of DRI on who's the overall manager of different agents and their intended purposes. You can have other people leveraging these tools, right, and like maybe even contributing to the training, but to really have one clear owner to make sure that there's someone keeping tabs. And then also really, really important that all of these agents, if feasible, you have a way to actually see what answers and what information they are giving your end users. So if you had an intern knowing like, who are they calling? What are they saying on the phone, right? All that information is really relevant. In the past, I know a long time ago, we used to track people's emails, and so you could go review their emails and see what they said to different customers. Same applies to agents, right? What are they saying? Is it accurate? Are they giving the right tone? Like all of that stuff is things that you should want to review. And so we have a way where you can actually go in and see all of these different questions and answers and what your agents are doing. But a lot of tools don't actually give you that transparency. They just show you kind of how to control the inputs, less and don't give you as much of the back end. So really making sure that whatever systems you're using are giving you some review place to sort of see what work is it actually doing, and is it accurate, and can I actually train it based on the previous work, so that you can continuously improve it over time.
So what I hear you saying is that it's not just management as traditional management, but the rise of agentic AI has actually changed the entire user experience. Is that an accurate statement? Okay.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I just think I would just say like instead of treating it as just one intern, think as like an intern that has a much wider impact, right, across your company. So
I agree.
Fabrice, what about the user experience from your perspective?
Yeah, before that, just to complement, and I fully agree with it, one should not underestimate that whether it's an intern, an expert, an assistant, or whatever, it needs to be managed. And one should not think that just you write something, you put it on production, and you can go on vacation. You have to daily review, monitor the behavior, the replies of those systems, and check and try to understand the gaps between what they've done and what you expect them to do in terms of quality, whether it comes from the prompt, from the model, from your content. That's why you spot the gaps in your content, the governance of your content. And I think it's essential to keep that in mind. And that's part of the tools that vendors provide as well, not just the technology, but all the tools that you need around those engines to monitor, manage, review, assess. And I think it's a key aspect of that most of the time companies underestimate. To the UX point, I think, yes, it's changing the user experience. But I think that's probably the least and the most underestimated part, underworked part of the entire AI thing. We are building the technology. We start understanding how important content is to make that work. So it's changing the content strategy, the knowledge management strategy, the technology is evolving. Everybody builds that. But if you look at the UX and the UI itself that we provide, it's very much, at least for humans, it's very chat-oriented. It's pretty weak, in fact. Nobody has really reinvented that. See what I mean? We made it a chat. I think that's probably one of the next thing to reinvent, is the way we are going to interact with those systems in a more efficient way than writing or just having a vocal talking to it, and how that blends into our daily processes, and how that goes everywhere in a pervasive way into the tools we use, whatever we do every day as users in our companies. More like just a standalone tool that is a chat that you ask questions to and that you read the reply. So I think that's probably the UI part is, for me, still the weak part of these AI systems, because, again, we are so focused on making them work in terms of quality that we haven't spent that much energy yet on reinventing the way people interact with it.
Well, the way people interact with it isn't that. No, I was going to say it's a problem, but it's not a problem. But isn't it a challenge? with the extraordinary pace of change. I mean, you were just talking, Fabrice, about the difference in the newer model of ChatGPT. And if you think, well, okay, I know how to do this, all of a sudden it changes and you have to learn how to deal with that. And while you're learning how to deal with that, it changes again. So
Yep.
how frustrating is this for your business and for your customers?
It is. And that's, I mean, everything's going to change every 6 months for the next 2 to 3 years anyway. So we have to get used to that.
Just get used to it? Is that what you're telling me?
Get used to the fact that you're going to have to relearn everything and the way those systems behave, their capabilities, the way to interact with them, because it's going to change for the next years for sure. And I mean, we are just at the beginning. We think that we've done it. I think we're there, and we should be here. We're there. See what I mean? It's like nothing has been done so far, which is pretty exciting.
Hillary,
by the way,
where are we? Hillary, where do you think we are on that? Where he's going?
Oh, I mean, I always say, our head of engineering just says, just wait 5 minutes and we'll have a new model, right? You just wait 5 minutes because it's moving so fast. I think in the past, whenever any software company was coming out with new changes or new features, you had about, half a year to kind of like educate your team, explain what was happening. Right. You had a lot more time to sort of like go to market with it, have people test it. You had a lot more time in that sort of like timeline of change. Now it's much more truncated. And so oftentimes we're like working on features that aren't even going to be out for a lot of customers for 6 months, but you have to like slow it down almost in how you educate, because it would just be so overwhelming for customers, right? And for teams, because you're just constantly sending them more information. One thing I was going to say around the user experience side, I think my biggest advice to people around UX right now is just making sure that you can feed whatever information is most relevant into whatever system your end users want to use. And so if they want to use chat, great. If they want to use some sort of voice tool, if they're using, something that's more proactive, if you're building something in-house, right? As long as all these systems can integrate together, it's really easy now with MCP to have a lot of tools talk to each other in a much more effective way. And so like ensuring that those connections are working really stably and that you have a little bit of flexibility in which models you're using for what and which places you want your users to be experiencing certain things is, I think, the biggest thing, because it's going to change really fast. You don't want to get locked into like, this is the user experience we want, when, as Fabrice mentioned, like a month later, it could be no one's using chat anymore. Everyone wants this other thing. And then you're like, oh, well, we just built this whole system around this. So just as long as your content can be easily kind of like transported and pushed into whatever system or tooling your team or end user wants to use, I think is the biggest thing to think through.
Yeah. I'd like to go back to the concept of governance that we were talking about earlier, because the challenges around governance and trust and oversight all fall into this rapid pace of change. And as agents, I mean, one of the pieces of paces is quickly changing paces of change there. Yes. As agents become increasingly autonomous and they take on more knowledge discovery and collaboration tasks, how does that affect what your companies do? I actually heard on the news this morning about autonomous agents that have been given basically been given a shopper's credit card and can go out and actually make purchases for a customer, which personally I would not do, but apparently some people would. And so this is potentially where we are headed. And what does that do to governance and trust and oversight?
I can go. I think
go to that one.
One of the things that we try to say is just like there's still like calls them in, right? So if I create an agent that does specifically, as you're saying, Mary D, go out and buy things, right, with people's credit cards to help improve their shopping experience. Like if it goes crazy and buys a bunch of stuff and that person doesn't want it to, it doesn't fall. I can't just say like, oh, sorry, the AI did it. Like it's me. I built the system. I built the workflow. So there's still always going to be a human at the end of the line who has to be responsible. And so that's why you have to really test this stuff over, really tune it
You
and make
do.
sure that it's
Yeah,
not going to
absolutely.
act right in a way that you don't want it, and then having those checks
Yeah.
and balances so that there is sort of like an undo button or a a way for you to kind of back if it does accidentally do the wrong thing, and like how to catch those
Yeah.
moments within your workflow. So it's making sure that all of
Yeah.
those different scenarios are kind of built in, so that the human can get notified, hey, like this looks like it's doing something weird, let's go fix the prompt, let's go check on this, versus waiting until it's happening to thousands of users and you have this major issue on your hands. So
Yeah, which you don't want a major issue on your hands, very definitely. Fabrice,
no.
Well,
what do you think?
I think that's, I hear you, and that makes me think. I think that's a good question. And we have tons of examples like that. I remember that was like 3 months ago. I read a blog article, and someone had deployed something called OpenClaw. It's like a local model on the laptop. And there was a task which was uh, sorting the emails and making things clean. And the agent had deleted the entire mailbox. It's like the good way to clean things, like throw everything away, garbage everything. So suddenly you open your laptop and you realize that you have no emails anymore in your mailbox because the agent has really wiped out everything, deleted all the emails. That happens. So credit card, you give a credit card to a bot. Maybe we'll hear in the news one day that some AI agent has spent, I don't know, 200K buying stupid things. That happens. Uh, but
It would not surprise me.
that would not surprise us. But does that mean that real humans don't do mistake either? Have you never deleted a file by mistake yourself? You see what I mean? So the question is, yes, AI will do mistakes. We need to figure out how to put the guardrails around that, but people do mistakes as well. And we can shift that from autonomous driving cars, self-driving cars. That's the same. When there's
Yeah.
an accident with a self-driving car, it's like that's on the news. It's like, oh my God, someone hurt by a car. How many millions of kilometers have been driven safely by self-driving car, and how many people die or hurt or have accidents every day driving themselves? So the question is, would I trust more a self-driving car or people driving? I don't know. At some point, maybe self-driving car, even though they are not perfect, may become less dangerous than people. So will I make mistakes? Yes. How do we put the kill switch at the right places? Or can we recover some mistake? Because sometimes you can not even push the kill switch and stop the AI from doing something wrong. How can you recover from that, knowing that anyway, people do mistakes as well? So
Yeah.
I don't have the answer. I think that's it's like uncharted territory yet. It's easy to write nice blog posts on AI making mistakes, but again, people do mistakes as well. And that's part of the thing we still need to improve, that's for sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me turn to a question from our viewer. This is a good one, I think. Is curious to know how to prepare knowledge for an AI agent. So we're getting into the practical here.
As long as it depends on how big or large of a kind of goal you have to start. Oftentimes teams, in order to make your AI or your knowledge ready for the AI agent, start small, right? So start with what you know
Yeah.
is accurate, structured in a clean way, understand, right? And so whether you're picking information up at the small subfolder level and then bringing that in, it's important to make sure that you're starting small and then building on it. I think, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Might be a little delayed. Okay, good. Okay, good. And so starting with a strong foundation and then building, I think the last thing you want to do is then just hope that the
Fabrice.
AI will, pull that information in clearly.
Okay. Fabrice, you want to pick up on that one?
Yeah, I can. Again, you're right that throwing flat content, massive amount of content at an LLM won't do the job. I mean, you have to cherry pick the part of your knowledge, the part of your content that you want to hand over to the LLM for, or an AI system or an agent to solve a problem. So everything that, and that's part of the low-tech aspect of what vendors like Guru and Free Topics do is taking your content as it is, chunking, organizing, tagging, so that we optimize the content for this AI consumption. We don't throw a 500 pages PDF at an LLM.
Yeah.
We don't work like that, and I guess Guru doesn't either. I mean, that's our job. We take this content, we extract the text, we reorganize, we restructure, we try to discover the context, extract the metadata. So that's part of the preparation. But again, that's a lot of work. And I mean, that's why vendors exist, so that because the subtlety, the complexity of it, the amount of work it requires to have the connectors, being able to process those different formats, understand how to best chunk, organize the content to feed the LLM, how much content to give, not too much, not too many of that content, that knowledge to the LLM. All of that is part of the technological aspect of what vendors like Google and Free Topics do. There's a real complexity here. And again, because LLMs are evolving every day, even ourselves, we have to adapt our technology every 6 months to the new capabilities and the new needs of those LLMs as well. So it's a never-ending story as well. That's why I say when I see companies trying to build their own KM systems, preparing the content, say, okay, do you have the bandwidth and the funding in your company to do that every 6 months for the next 5 years? Will your IT, I mean, it's fun to do it once, but if after 6 months you have to redo everything, how long can you spend being funded in your company to make that project work? That's why I think in the future, pretty rapidly, most companies will understand that they need to rely on solutions that are taking care of making the technology, building that technology for themselves, so that they can focus on the content, on the use cases, on the outcome, on managing their agents, not building the technology.
Words of wisdom there. Okay, well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions today, and we apologize that we were unable to get to all of your questions. But as I stated earlier, all those questions will be answered via email. And I'd like to thank our speakers today, Hilary Curran, Head of Customer Innovation and AI Enablement at Guru, Fabrice Lacroix, CEO and founder, Fluid Topics. If you would like a copy of the presentation, you can download it once the event is archived. And if you would like to review this event or send it to a colleague, please use the same URL that you used for today's event. It will be archived for 90 days. Plus, you will receive an email once the archive is posted. This now concludes our broadcast, and thank you all for joining us.